Hello and welcome back to America's Forum here on Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman. Still with us for more of the conversation on veterans and making sure they can integrate back into civilian life is former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Peter Pace. General, it's great to have you stick around with us.
John, it's great to be with you. Thanks.
All right, so we're continuing to take a closer look here at this issue. I guess basically the overall question here is enough being done either by the government or by civilians like myself to help these folks reintegrate back into civilian life. What else could we do?
There's a lot that's being done, but listen, you can always do more, and these are imperatives to hire these folks. I mean, there's a moral imperative of 1% of the nation defending 99, but more important, the social imperative. The greatest generation, the World War II generation, they were the leaders of industry going forward. Today's young folks, they're the next greatest generation. The nation's going to need them going forward. It's a national security issue to preserve the all-volunteer force by making sure that people who join understand that there's going to be employment for them when they get home. And it's a global competitiveness, which is very important to the nation, obviously, but also uses the skills of our folks, our national resource, to the best of our ability. And the way to do this is to share information, to make it possible for industry to understand what the skills are that translate well. You know, it's hard to understand why a rifleman walking the streets of Baghdad, how that individual might translate into your company, your business. But if you take a look at his decision-making skills, her ability to be a team player, to be a team builder, the integrity, the courage that they have, all the skills that they bring as individuals, as proven leaders, and then translate that into jobs in the U.S. economy, you can see where employers would be doing themselves a favor by hiring these young men and women.
Now, I know, General, I do not want to put you in the position where you're forced to say anything that could be perceived as political, but I want to ask you about this, and if it's not appropriate for you to answer, feel free to tell me so. But we recently saw this move to try and reinstate some of the benefits from veterans that have been cut as part of the budgetary process in Washington. And much to the chagrin of a lot of people who support veterans, those benefits were not able to be reinstated in that bill. Could you talk to us a little bit about this, and what do you think this says to veterans out there?
Look, this is a very complex issue, and the nation has finite resources. But what you have for the last 12 years is 1% of the nation defending the other 99%. And that 1% who've been deployed 1 year, 2 years, 3 years more, who've been away from their kids and away from their families, when they joined, the promises that the government made them were very specific. Now, if we want to change the rules, fair enough, but we ought to be changing the rules and telling people, okay, if you join beginning, pick a date, tomorrow, then the rules for you are going to be different than the rules used to be. My simple admonition would be, by all means, look at what the nation can afford. By all means, look at what is proper and correct. But don't move the cheese on people who have been serving the nation for the last 12 years in combat, in war zones, away from their family. Do it in a way, if you must do it, where you're saying to people prospectively, here's what the new rules are. If you want to join up and serve the nation based on these rules, please do. And I think that's a fair way to go forward.
Yeah, and for some of my friends who are veterans of both Iraq and Afghanistan, talking to them about this, it feels like to them the kind of salt has been poured in a wound here because you look at a situation at VA hospitals where a lot of these vets are continuing to need to go for treatment, and we still have an issue with a backlog at the VA hospital. In terms of outreach to our own members of Congress, what should we be telling them to deal with that situation in particular to help these vets get better care at their VA hospitals? At least get care sooner.
I think there's an awful lot of people looking at it, including General Rick Shinseki, who's the Secretary of Veterans Affairs. There's always more that can be done. We have done so much more for our veterans today, including myself, than we did for our returning Vietnam veterans. Is it much better than it was? Absolutely. Could it be better? Of course. The question is, how much can you afford to do? My only admonition to folks in office and folks who are serving in leadership positions in the government is take a look at what the needs are. Triage the problems. Do something about the things you can do something about. And if there's resources needed, then put it on the table and let's have a national discussion. I'm not here to say that we should have more of this and more of that, because there are other national priorities. But I do think that veterans issues should be on the table and should be debated and allocated based on the total needs of the nation. And I think if we do this in an open forum, in a way that people don't feel like somebody did something to them in the middle of the night, I think that the folks will understand. But as I said, there were promises made. If the promises are going to change, let's be forthright about that. Tell folks what the new rules are, and then ask them to volunteer based on the new rules.
Yes, certainly. And we have a story from the Newsmax website, or from I think a publication that highlights this fact. Veterans called that budget bill a total betrayal. But again, I want to take a step back again, General, and talk about some of the efforts that you have done. This was a bipartisan event with Dr. Jill Biden, the Vice President's wife, and former President George W. Bush, and yourself. This is not a political issue we should highlight, and this is something that we all should be concerned about. It's good to say and good to highlight the fact that things have changed, and I think a lot of Americans would much rather see people applauding these veterans as they come home after both the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War, as opposed to what happened in Vietnam. But clearly, we can all improve as a nation.
Well, listen, as a veteran myself, I mean, the American people during this war have been incredible. Even those who do not agree with what we are doing, reach out to folks in uniform in airports, on the street, and thank them. And it makes a huge difference to a soldier, sailor, to be able to understand that the American people appreciate them and respect them for what they're doing.
That's absolutely right, and you can't say it enough. General Peter Pace, thanks so much for being with us, and thank you for everything that you did in your service and what you continue to do today to help these vets get the care and give them the attention that they do deserve. And anybody out there who has a job open, consider a veteran. These folks really need our help right now. And
Thank you, John. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, General. An honor to speak with you. You have a great day, sir. We'll have much more coming up here on the program, including a segment we like to call Hash Rehash. Some of the most talked about stories on social media this week. We'll have those for you coming up right after this.